Hey, and welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
I'm Josh.
And we got a double whammy of an interview this week. We've got Mike Norton and Tim Seeley, the creative team behind the Image comic series Revival. You got Tim Seeley on scripts, Mike Norton on pencils, and that results in this book that, even though it kind of feels a bit like Twin Peaks, from our conversation you can find out that before starting this book, neither had actually watched Twin Peaks yet. But, which means that that's more impressive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, and it's a great read. Tim Seeley's also was one of the co-creators on Hackslash, which is one of Chris's favorites.
Indeed.
And then Mike Norton has he's drawn for the Big Two before. He's worked extensively with like Green Arrow. And he's got his own weekly webcomic, Battlepug. So Josh is all about that. Are you going to say indeed, or are you just going to smile into the mic?
No, indeed.
Smile. They can hear me.
Yeah. Tim Seeley, of course, is also an artist in his own right because he drew, like,
Fucking the coolest character ever. And I'll let you listen to the fucking interview to find out who. It was Snake Eyes.
So, yeah.
Here I was thinking it was Psycho Pirate.
Yeah. Not the Challengers of the Unknown.
Nah.
Power Pack. So without much further ado, here's interview number 1, followed immediately by interview number 2. And joining us this week, we've got Mike Norton, the artist on Revival. Mike, thanks for coming on the show.
Sure. Thank you.
Now, so this book is one of the more subtle kind of like horror stories that I've ever read, especially compared to other undead books like The Walking Dead or any of that sort of thing. What are some of your kind of like artistic? In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, it really reminds me kind of like of like stuff like Twin Peaks or like a big episode of the X-Files. What are some of your influences in drawing all this?
Well, I mean, Twin Peaks is probably a good example. Although I haven't actually watched that show.
It's coming back next year. I mean, it should be good, right?
I mean, how great it is. So it's all on Netflix, so I'm gonna go watch it. But I do. I mean, the seemingly normal stuff that's not really normal is definitely an influence on the atmosphere and story of Revival. I mean, artistically, I'm definitely going for that sort of realism. I'd probably say like Coen Brother movies like Fargo and stuff are right up there as far as artistic influences on the atmosphere of the book.
Now, you're originally from Tennessee. Did you grow up in a small town, kind of like the characters in the book?
Sure. I mean, it was a lot smaller when I grew up there. It's pretty big now, but so Wausau is not a small place anymore, really. It's still small, but I think the Wausau that we created is the Wausau I think that Tim still has in his mind from when he was a lot younger. But it's I grew up in a real small town where most everybody knew you, and if they didn't, they knew somebody that knew you, and that kind of thing. So word traveled fast, and and you'd always hear funny stories about things that you didn't know if they were necessarily true. But that we had our own little ghost stories about people in the park. It was probably all came down from like somebody got arrested there or something. It probably, when you're a kid, it becomes there's a ghost in the woods in the park or something like that kind of thing.
Did that kind of influence your look of like the kind of the souls of the revived kind of walking through the woods?
Well, no, the creeps. That's what we call them. We call them creeps. The creeps are actually something that Tim sort of designed himself. He came when we came up with the book. He actually drew those out first, so they looked like these weird little. What you guess you could extrapolate the sort of like Slender Man mythos from, but it's a strange little. I like to say, it looks like the those hot air balloon things at the car lots or something that wave their hands around.
The floppy guy man or whatever they're called.
A wacky waving inflatable
There you go.
arm man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim has a better explanation for it because it actually comes from something that he remembers growing up. But I just saw it and said, yeah, that's creepy. I wouldn't want to see that in the woods. So
now, I mean, Tim has got some experience as an artist in his own right. How much creative license do you get in, say, like character design or artistic liberty?
Oh, tons of it. I mean, he only draws stuff if he has an idea for it. I mean, he never does like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, draw this. When we came up with the book, he had certain characters already in his head, like Martha. He already had an idea of, because Martha's essentially based on an old comic book character he had when he was in high school. So he just put her in this and made her a somewhat normal person, other than being dead and everything. But so he designed her and her dad Wayne and the creeps, but I designed everybody else. So he just like, if he has an idea, he draws it out, but there's never a, hey, my way or the highway thing. He just lets me go do whatever I want.
Now, you've been working on this book for, 36 issues now. Issue 37 comes out February 24th. But you've also got your own weekly webcomic, Battlepug. What's it like kind of balancing out the two workloads?
It's very, 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 very difficult. I'm working right now, if that answers your question.
Sure.
I'm drawing while we're talking, so I don't really go out a lot, which suits me fine.
Well, especially this time of the year in the Windy City where it's just super cold.
Sure.
But in terms of because you've done work with the big two, this is obviously a huge image book. You've been working on this book for like well over 3 years at this point. How would you kind of compare it to, say, like drawing, just like the big superhero fare that you had done, like Green Arrow or Black Canary or any of that?
It's a good question. I at first felt a lot less pressure doing Revival. I mean, with licensed characters, there's always stuff that you have to fix or you're worried about, especially if it's a character you like. Like, I always had trouble drawing Spider-Man because it was a character that I was like, I want to put my mark on Spider-Man, but it's really difficult when you psych yourself out like that. But I came on to Green Arrow and did, until Revival, that was the longest book I'd ever worked on. And that was a lot of fun because I really had no tie to Green Arrow other than reading it when I was a kid. And so it can be a lot of fun to do a licensed character like that. But at the same time, nobody's going to scrutinize how I draw Dana Cypress because I made her up, so they can't tell me I did it wrong. But there are message board after message board of people that will call you out on drawing somebody firing an arrow the wrong way, because they do that a lot.
Yeah,
sure.
You mentioned that you grew up reading a lot of those licensed characters. Was it stuff like Mike Grell that really influenced your artwork?
Not necessarily Mike Grell. I did have the like the Longbow Hunters and stuff like that, and Neil Adams' old Green Arrow, Green Lantern stuff. I was much more of a Marvel kid when I was growing up. I liked Paul Smith and John Byrne a lot, and those kind of guys. But like a lot of the Marvel stuff I was really into. I got into DC later on. It's just weird that I ended up working for them the most out of the big two.
Now, something we try to ask all of our guests while we have them on the show is, what are you currently geeking out over? Like, be it music or movies or TV.
That's a good question. I have a real big problem with that because lately I either forget to read comics or because I have a bunch of them on my iPad that I haven't read yet, and I listen to music, but I don't buy any of it. I just have like my iTunes radio on, so I don't even know what a lot of the stuff is when I listen to it. But movies and TV wise, I've been I just watched the 2 seasons of Danger 5 this weekend while I was drawing, and that has got to be the most insane stuff I've seen ever, and I really enjoyed it. So that, and we're all getting bombarded with Star Wars, and I'm cool with that because I'm a Star Wars fan from from when it came out. I was there, so
sure, yeah. What did you think of The Force Awakens compared to any of the other films?
I absolutely loved it. I've seen it 3 times now, which is, I think that's a healthy amount. I think anything higher than that might be. But I loved it. I mean, it was the Star Wars I think everybody was expecting when the prequels came out.
Or hoping for.
Yeah.
Or hoping for it. I mean, you can't fault George for wanting to make a different kind of movie. It's just that his different kind of movie was really boring and mechanical. And
yeah. It was very different.
Yeah. It should have stayed as one of those experimental movies for his friends.
It was extremely different from Star Wars. It was like another thing.
Yeah. At least it wasn't more American Graffiti.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it could be argued that that's his only good movie. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That Star Wars could be his only good movie.
I love the first American Graffiti just fine, but then there's the sequel.
Oh, well, yeah. Nobody even cares. Did he have anything to do with this?
He was a producer on it, and the funny thing is, if you buy American Graffiti, they basically give you more American Graffiti for free
as a special feature.
They it's like, hey, if you flip it over, if you want, it's here. And I watched it once, and it was terrible.
Oh yeah,
it's there. You might as well watch it.
Harrison Ford even shows up for like a second, but even George Lucas is like, I missed the ball on that one. Yeah. Like that was something we should have never touched.
Most people don't even realize it exists.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know it existed until I opened up my Laserdisc copy of the definitive, Star Wars collection and was reading through the book of like Lucas Films, and it was just detailing every single movie that Lucas Films had made up until like 1990. And I was like, American Graffiti. Okay, yeah, I know that one. More American Graffiti?
Yeah. No, less American Graffiti.
The Christmas special is more well-known than American Graffiti.
Another one that George Lucas only produced.
Yeah.
Sure.
Though you've made that a drinking game out of that.
I have, and it's a dangerous one.
Yeah.
I've heard on several accounts that he was much more involved than he says he was.
I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a sweep under the rug move.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's bad enough that he's embarrassed by it, because this man is still proud of the prequels. If he's embarrassed by it, it must be that.
Here's the thing about Lucas is that, I mean, I don't know if he's ever proud of anything because he keeps going back and revising it.
That's true.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's not my vision.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Danger 5 earlier. Do you tend to like go with like the big over the top, like kind of like 80s like reflected pop culture stuff?
I don't know if it's like the thing that I go for, but it's definitely I don't hate on it. It's definitely fun for me. I mean, I remember the 80s fondly. I was in high school in the 80s, so it's right there for me. But I enjoy silliness. I enjoy things that I can say this is really stupid and still laugh at it. And Danger 5 is just bizarre. It was insane. It was kind of brilliant. I've seen other things those pest. Like, I actually saw Turbo Kid today too, because I was like, I'm doing this now. I might as well.
It's got Michael Ironside. So
yeah.
I think I saw it's on Netflix, and
it is.
Yeah.
I popped it into my queue because I was like, I need to see this.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and I've seen Kung Fury, and those are two fun things, but for completely different reasons. I mean, one is a pastiche kind of send up of the 80s, and one is a actual movie influenced by the 80s.
Yeah.
And they're both really fun for different reasons. So
Now, as somebody that's, I would go as far to call Revival a horror book.
yeah,
Would you?
I think it's a horror book. Tim thinks it's a crime book, but I think it's a
Well, yeah, every book says like rural noir, and it's like, okay, noir.
Noir.
Seriously, maybe?
Yeah.
It's really hard to say. It's really we realized it as soon as he. I'd never heard of that term before, but he said it was a thing. And I was like, well, it sounds interesting. I don't want to pronounce it, but
Rural is hard enough as it is, but then throw in noir as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you throw in some French in there. But do you have any? Are there any big like horror franchises that you're a fan of, like zombies or Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever?
Well, here's the thing. Tim's the big horror fan. I mean, that's kind of the thing everybody knew him for because he did the
Backslash
thing for 8 or 10 years, and he's a huge horror fan. And I wouldn't call myself a fan. I am knowledgeable, and I have seen many horror movies, but it's not my favorite genre. Although I love being affected by a good horror movie. It's not my favorite thing in the world, horror movies.
Maybe that's why Tim sees it as not a horror comic because he's like so into it. He's like, no. See, here's where it differs from horror.
He's just like everything's a horror comic to him. So he realize it. Yeah.
Sex criminals, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I approach Revival though, is because horror movies. I used to be really just scared of them. That was the honest truth. Is I was scared of horror movies. I was afraid to watch them, and the things that scare me the most are the things that just are normal, and then out of nowhere, just something horrible happens, and it's something that could happen in real life, and you're just like, no, that's messed up. So we try and do that a lot in Revival, where it's just. I mean, you mentioned before, it's a quiet book until something horrible happens.
Yeah.
Then the reader reacts like the people in the book react.
Yeah. I mean, you draw some really gory stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I love about doing it is that until I'd done this book, I had never really drawn this sort of stuff before. I mean, now I've drawn a lot of it, so now I just want to do a comedy book after that.
There's no lost Green Arrow page of like Oliver Queen cutting a dude's guts out.
My Green Arrow, the one I did with Kreisberg, who actually did the show, the Arrow show, it was a pretty violent comic. I mean, we had a character whose whole thing was that he had a knife stuck in his head. So, I mean, it was a pretty violent comic when I was working on it.
Yeah, that's at least as far as like the rest of the DC books were concerned. Sure.
Any guts coming out or anything. But.
Yeah. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
They got to get those sales numbers up somehow.
Yeah.
So to kind of as a kind of final thing, what can we expect? In the future of say Revival or I mean, I know you're just drawing them, but like, have you and Tim talked about? I mean, obviously you're drawing some of the future issues. What are some of the big things? Because we're kind of at a pretty big crossroads.
Yeah, we're in the final act, so to speak, of the book, and we've always known, how it was going to end from the beginning, and we always talk about it about how. Once we got the final act rolling, there's no way to stop it because it's sort of like a big snowball that's going to happen. It's just going to be pretty big, big for Wausau. It's going to be a city affecting events that happen.
Is anybody going to live in Wausau after the events of Revival are done in the comic book world?
That's a question that I actually don't know. I don't know what Tim is going to do to the city. I know there will be people that live.
I feel like they would just all kind of pick up sticks and move away because they've really had like a shitty winter.
It's gonna be. You're gonna find out everything you wanted to know. I mean, we've already figured out, what the monsters are, and we'll find out who killed Martha. And
who killed Laura Palmer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know who killed Laura
I
Palmer.
haven't seen the show yet, so I have,
we won't
Season
spoil.
two. Season
We
two.
won't spoil. We won't spoil.
yeah, it'll be pretty fun. I think it's going to be rewarding for people that actually read the book and are into it. And we've been pretty, lost like with the detail, reveals. And so, unlike Lost, we're going to actually, tell you what happened.
Yeah, stick to your guns too.
Well, I mean, unlike Lost, you actually know what happened as the creative
Well,
team.
yeah, that's and it was discussed when we first came up with the idea of the book, because I was a huge Lost fan at the time, and I was like, you know what, we have to go into this and know what we're doing.
Are you
Because
still a
it's
big
gonna
Lost?
suck.
Yeah. Are you still like Team Lost? Are you still a big Lost fan?
I am overall. I mean, I understand and I believe the last season was a huge mess like everybody else, but considering what they did, that last episode was about as best as they were going to get, and I'm satisfied with it overall. One out of 7 seasons for me was pretty good. So I if that's the track record, then it's gonna. I mean, I have the box set, so
Yeah. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on, and again, Revival number 37 is in stores everywhere, February 24th. If you really want to get the big deluxe hardcover, and you should, because it's chock full of extras. Volume 3 of that's out. Volume 6 of the regular trades are out. So for all you listeners at home, you got a lot of Revival to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you want more when it's done.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Mike.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
And now also joining us, we've got the writer of Revival. He also is the co-creator of Hackslash. Was part of the writing team for Batman Eternal. He's currently writing Grayson with Tom King, which is, my favorite DC character. So I'm not saying that we might talk about that, but we might talk about that. Thanks for joining us, Tim Seeley.
Thanks for having me.
So we're kind of in. I feel like we're ramping into the final act of Revival. We're seeing like the Cypress Sisters are on the run. We know the true nature of the creeps. What can we expect going into to issue 37 of the series?
37 is so the kind of idea for this arc was to sort of catch back up with some of the side characters. Not really side characters, but some of the other cast members, and sort of focus on them for an issue. So 36 was all of the Lester issue, and then 37 will be the focus is on Nikki and Derek, Dana's ex-boyfriend and father of Cooper, and his new girlfriend Nikki, and it just kind of deals with them dealing with sort of military occupation in the town, and it has some really twisted stuff in there. As Derek kind of gets he kind of gets himself dragged into being a drug dealer, basically, again. So yeah, there's some cool crime stuff and some weird horror stuff, and then after that, issue 38 is a focus on Cooper, and then the kind of those 3 issues set up the next sort of 3-issue crazy chaotic mini arc that's sort of shows what happens with the military and that kind of stuff, and the fact that they have this prison where they keep the revivers in like a concentration camp almost.
Now, in the liner notes for the deluxe edition, Volume 1 of the series, you mentioned that you had kind of conceived the character of Martha for like years before the series even debuted. What made Revival like the perfect story to include her as a character?
The idea for the character at the time was such a Crow ripoff. It was just, I was like 16 or 17, and the idea at the time was like, Crow was cool. What if it was a hot girl? Because then I could draw a hot girl, and it would be also revenge and goth and stuff. And I think
sounds like a perfect series to me.
Yeah, but I think as I got older, my interest in doing a revenge series dwindled a lot. And I've seen it done so many times, and I think the idea that kind of eventually settled on for Revival, and what made M so perfect was that the idea was, what if you came back to life after being murdered and you didn't care who killed you because you're alive again, and that's awesome. And that's kind of, the at least partially the story of M, is that she lived this life where she kind of felt, restrained and that she was always kind of waiting for something to happen, and nothing happened. And when she dies, she comes back and realizes she kind of has to make her own life. So she's able to do that because she doesn't have to be afraid of dying again by doing whatever the hell she wants. So that's kind of that character's story. It just doesn't. Yeah, I mean, she can still kind of be the spooky, sexy goth girl, but in a very different way than the character I conceived of at 17.
Yeah, though I would tell you that if you did use her for a Crow-like series, it'd probably be better than any of the Crow sequels.
Yeah, indeed.
I do kind of get like a Twin Peaks or kind of like elongated X-Files vibe from. I mean, it's almost like Who Killed Martha Cypress is almost like Who Killed Laura Palmer if Laura Palmer came back to discover who killed her. What were some of your influence kind of going into Revival?
Well, it wasn't Twin Peaks because I'd never seen Twin Peaks.
I've never seen Twin Peaks.
No, I have not.
Yeah, we asked Mike the same question.
Well, I mean, I've seen it now and I loved it. It wasn't an influence going in, but as I was working on it, people kept telling me you should really watch this. And then it's weird how I guess sort of the vibe that I kind of hoped to get was definitely there in Twin Peaks, and I had no idea. I mean, but I've loved other David Lynch things and Coen Brothers things, so I'm sure that that's definitely sort of part of it. Yeah, I mean, people say, yeah, I've heard people say it's sort of that Revival is sort of Twin Peaks and Stephen King, and I've actually never read a Stephen King novel either, which is I know a crime, but I've never done that either. So, but I think like the main influence sort of I don't know, like kind of all the stuff I loved as a kid, horror movies like zombie stuff and The Crow and all that sort of stuff, but sort of still a filter of an older guy who kind of wanted to see those things explored in different ways. So I mean, I think the survival movie aspect of pretty much all zombie stories, like I loved it when I saw it as a kid, and I think The Walking Dead takes that to the logical far extreme, and I don't think there's any reason to do any more zombie survival stories. At least I'm not interested in doing one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of taking the elements of those things that I liked, and then trying to sort of add a different, different elements to them. And I think there's definitely a little bit of Coen Brothers in there, and there's definitely a little bit of, just sort of. I don't know, the quiet sort of horror stuff.
Well, it's a very subtle, kind of like subtly paced. Like the violence almost comes out of nowhere in your book.
Yeah, and that and that's one of those things where, I kind of love that about Coen Brothers movies, where like I think violence is probably very much like in the real world, where it's just very shocking and surprising, and when violence occurs, you're actually spending half that time just trying to understand what the hell just happened. So I think that's a big thing. I know for Mike, a big influence was the TV show Lost, in that he loved that show. I didn't really watch it, but he loved that it was like a mystery show, and then it kind of kept building on this mystery. And so then he was kind of disappointed when you get to the end of the show and they didn't know what the ending was. So I think we were influenced by like, let's make something like Lost, where there's a big mystery and we actually know what it is.
When we had Mike on earlier, he was saying that you're a huge, like, he views the book more as kind of like a horror book, and you look at it kind of more as a mystery or a crime book. I mean, every book says like rural noir on the cover. And as the story's progressing, we're really getting the sense that that Martha's death, the mystery of that, is tied to Revival Day. Yeah. Though I think with the most recent arc, we're seeing that the Revival Day is also affecting the flora and fauna. Is that going to be kind of a bigger, explored much more in the future issues?
Yeah, well, definitely, part of that is to sort of, flesh out the mythology as you go along and sort of uh, add color, I think, and sort of that creepy factor all the time. So yeah, it's definitely something we'll see coming up. And yeah, there's like one thing I really want to do with the story that I've kind of been playing with since the sort of unthawing of the Wassa area that I think will really be creepy and speaks to a lot of the themes I think we're trying to do in the series too.
I did have a question. So in this most recent arc, and for our listeners at home, Volume 6 of Revival is currently on sale, which has this arc. And if you're not looking for spoilers, I guess plug your ears for like 30 seconds. We see the militia largely get apprehended by the feds. Is that off the table for the? Are they in fact done, or are we still going to see? And it's kind of prescient compared to what's going on in like Oregon, but like that is politics aside. Are we going to see more of the kind of the anti-federal government forces kind of be active in the future of Revival?
Well, I mean, so that the militia characters were actually inspired by real life, the Posse Comitatus, which was active in the Wassa area, the rural Wassa area in the 80s. So I mean, it's prescient in that it keeps happening. There's this sort of element of America that's afraid of the federal government and thinks they could fight them for some reason. I don't know how, even though the federal government has drones and nuclear weapons, but that they kind of that element was put in there to sort of act as foreshadowing too, because I think as you'll see as the story goes on, that now that the occupation is very much in swing, and we've got all these military, these true soldiers and stuff after two women, you're kind of going to begin to see that people are getting sort of pissed off about. I think the cabin fever is really setting in, and people are getting really pissed off about having to deal with this military occupation. So, normal people who were sort of comfortable with it or okay with it in the beginning are going to become, they're going to become around to the sort of Edmund Holt philosophy a little more.
We're kind of seeing. I mean, you mentioned like the Cypress Sisters being on the run. Everybody kind of like hitting like a kind of a pot boiler, hitting that fever pitch. Are we going? So, and Mike kind of alluded that we're kind of getting towards the end of Revival. Has the story really differed at all since you guys first conceived it several years ago?
No, not really. I mean, it's weird. A lot of the stuff that we let ourselves sort of wander with was really very much in line with what the ending was going to be. So that's pretty satisfying to see it kind of come to work out with what we intended it to be. Yeah, I mean, a couple of characters sort of became more important than I expected. Like Blaine Abel is a big one, and a couple other characters kind of just did their own thing. But a lot of the elements were always going to be part of it. And so Edmund Holt and the federal government, military occupation, all that stuff. It's weird how it's kind of stayed on point. I'm kind of proud of that.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that Blaine survived the snowmobile accident. To change gears real quick, you're currently co-writing Grayson with Tom King. I have to admit, as somebody whose Dick Grayson is one of my favorite DC characters, I was a little skeptical to see him become a secret agent. But I actually read the issues, and I'm like, this is really good. What is it like, kind of writing and taking that character into a new direction?
Well, I mean, when we started, it was you and everyone else were skeptical. So, I mean, I remember when they announced it, like people were just I got so many pissed off tweets, and I don't know, everybody thought I was going to ruin it, and the surprising part to me was like, yeah, but I like the character too. I'm not going to ruin him. It's just to us, I think, and Tom and I have talked about this. Like, it was just a really good engine to get more cool Dick Grayson stories, and that's all we viewed it as. But yeah, I mean, I think, over time that the view has changed, and almost everyone who sees us at a convention says, I wanted to hate this, but...
Well, I guess I'll just take a number then. But in terms of what can we expect next in Grayson, especially with the upcoming DC Rebirth?
Well, so I mean the solicitations are out on it. So Tom and I basically plotted out the series, and then we had to be taken off temporarily because we have to work on something else. So my last issue for a while comes out is issue 17, and that one you get to see some cool stuff. You get to see Dick fight Grifter, which is pretty awesome.
Sure.
And like you see the Syndicate spies, which were the sort of the shadow spies we kept seeing in the background that they kind of keep an eye over the community of DC spy universe. But we'll get to see them in action. You get Frankenstein, you get Grifter, you get all kinds of cool stuff.
Some more Midnighter.
What's that?
Some more Midnighter.
He's not in the. He's in the. I think he comes up. I wrote an outline and then it's passed on to Jackson and Colin, and they're doing the end of the Spy Wars kind of arc for us, which is, it's painful to pass off your babies, but those guys are really good, and I worked with them on Batman and Robin Eternal. And they're just super enthusiastic young dudes, which is weird for me to say because I don't feel old, but they are really young dudes, and they're really, really enthusiastic, and they have an amazing sort of working relationship. When we were doing the summits for Batman and Robin Eternal, like those two would just sort of go on these crazy rants together, that's how they would figure stuff out. And so we came to call them the Hollywood twins because they were just always pitching stuff at each other like a Hollywood agent or something. But they do really good work, so I think it's gonna be cool stuff.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't compliment you on doing the Lord's work on Grayson, because it really was a spectacular run that you guys put together.
Thanks, man. I mean, that's a weird gig to sort of. I kind of thought I'd just be working on it for all the times, but it's weird to write an outline and hand it off to someone. Very, very strange, but I think it'll turn out great. And I'm glad people like the book, and I mean, I think if anything, that book will always be known as the book that sort of showed the world that Mikkel Janin is one of the best artists in the business, and then everyone was like, "Who's this Tom King? He's wonderful." So I'm glad that it launched Tom because he's a really good guy and an awesome writer.
Oh yeah, he's doing good on Omega Men right now.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. I learned a lot from working with him, so hope I get to do it again.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Hackslash. In fact, one of our co-hosts, it's one of his favorite creator series.
Yeah, I was working at Midtown Comics right around the tail end of Hackslash, and I had kind of been out of comics for a while, but I randomly stumbled upon a job at the comic shop, and I just started seeing these cool horror covers, and I was like, what the hell is this Hackslash? I gotta check it out. So I went back and read every single issue, and I couldn't put it down. I think I read the entire run in the matter in between the release of the penultimate issue and the final issue, and I just ate it up, and it was money. I was so sad to see it go, but I thought you guys did such a beautiful job of wrapping it up. And one of the things that makes me the most sad with any kind of story is when it just kind of keeps going until people just stop reading it or stop watching the show, and it just kind of fizzles out. So it was a great send off that you guys did, but it was wonderful. As a huge horror nut myself, it was great to see such a good representation of the genre in comic book form. And just where did you come up with some of those the concepts, the characters, and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, so when I was a kid, my dad was he wasn't a very old dad. I mean, he had me when he was 21. So when I was in my 5-10 years old, my dad was still a pretty young guy, and it was right when the VCR was becoming popular. So every other day, my dad would go to the video store in town, this was sort of the era of the big box VHS covers and the really lurid painted horror movie covers and stuff. And so like I was always just really like I was surrounded by that kind of stuff, and I was a little bit afraid of it and a little bit of attracted to it. And so like I kind of always kept a flame for that sort of stuff, the really sleazy slasher movies and stuff like that. So and then when I got started doing comics, the idea for Hack Slash was, what if you could sort of elevate that material? Because I think the only thing that stuff lacks most of the time is good characters. It's really imaginative and scary and funny and gross and entertaining, but in the end, it's usually like characters are so stock.
Yeah.
So the idea on Hack Slash was, let's take all that shit and put really, really good character stuff in it. So, but yeah, I mean, the idea for the slashes was the easiest part. It's like it was like almost formulaic. It was like the slasher has to have some kind of they're basically like a combination of superheroes and wrestlers. And you'd always have to you have to come up with like a kind of
a gimmick,
and then you always throw in something that doesn't quite sort of relate to all the other things. So like if you're going by examples, like the fact that Jason Voorhees wears a hockey mask is almost completely irrelevant. There's nothing to do with hockey. And then Freddy has that glove, and we don't know why. It's always like, go with the sort of established theme and then add something really weird. And you go, voila, that's, you got a slasher. That's that's the so. But the slashers were usually sort of just reasons to have Cassie get stuck in with a bunch of new people that she has to sort of pretend she hates and then eventually come to care about, and then they die.
Right.
But yeah, it was really fun, and I mean, I missed doing that book because it was just so. I could do such crazy things with it, which I can't really do with Revival. Revival's very much like, very plotted out and very layered, and it's got to kind of fall in sort of order. Where with Hack Slash, it could be like, this issue we're going to do a weird crossover with whatever, and just do something fun.
Yeah, the one that always sticks out the most to me is like that pseudo Archie crossover. Like it just you open up the book and it's just like basically Jughead walking around and you're like, what the fuck is this? This is supposed to be horror. What the hell's going on? And then this guy just rips him in half and I'm like, oh shit.
I mean, to a degree, I think we did Afterlife with Archie before they did.
Yeah.
'Cause it was sort of like because the idea that I had on that was that an Archie comic has all the elements of a slasher movie except for a slasher. It has like all the teenage tropes are there, and it would just be funny to throw in some horror stuff there. And we ended up doing the sort of this is a weird idea, but here's how I came about to it. The town that Riverdale is based on is actually right next to the town that's sort of the inspiration for H.P. Lovecraft's Shadow over Innsmouth.
Oh.
So the idea was, and it's also the town, they're right around each other where Rob Zombie is from and Hellboy editor Scott Alley.
So it's like the perfect horror town.
It's like a pretty metal area to be from.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the town that Riverdale's based on is called Haverhill. And so that was kind of the idea, was to, just sort of take the fact that there was all these weird coincidences and just, jam them together and make a weird slasher meets Cthulhu meets Riverdale kind of thing.
Oh, it was beautiful.
While I got you on then, Tim, I have to ask, and I ask anyone that has a big like horror influence, are you team Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, or Leatherface?
Man, I like all those guys, but the Halloween movies are probably my favorite.
Nice.
But I would say, I think the series with the best films in it, that all the films are good, is Chucky. So I guess
Dark Horse candidate.
That's right.
All right.
Nice.
Okay.
if I had to pick one, I'd pick Chucky, if only because he has the most good movies. There are good movies in all those character series, but there's some really bad Friday the 13th movies. There's some horrific fucking Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them.
Takes Manhattan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one for sure.
Usually, if I remember correctly, the conceit that Sam and I have is that our favorite is the Nightmare on Elm Street series, but if we're going to pick a singular movie, it's the first Halloween movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the first Halloween is the best slasher movie ever made for sure.
It was cool. They did a thing recently for the 30th or 35th anniversary.
It came out in '78.
Yeah.
So.
Where they did a thing. Yeah, they did a thing this past year or 2015. My math's terrible. Where they re-released it in theaters, and I wasn't around to see it when it was in theaters. And that's I'm more team Michael Myers as well. So it was really cool to see that movie on the big screen. And they always talk about the score being so iconic and scary. But until you hear it in a movie theater, it's like the scariest thing when that starts kicking in.
Yeah, definitely.
And then also, Tim, I got to ask, when we were getting ready to do the interview, we were looking over all your work and being like, oh, he worked on this guy, that's so cool, and talking about Dick Grayson and Hackslash. I got to ask, I think the coolest character in comic books is Snake Eyes. Like, there's nobody cooler than Snake Eyes. And I got to ask, the cool thing about Snake Eyes is mostly because I can't draw, but he's a character that speaks through action. He obviously doesn't speak, in dialogue. Yeah. What was it like working on Snake Eyes, a guy that you have control on as an artist as opposed to a writer?
I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to write Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, and only, I don't know, Larry Hama's really good at it, and it's hard for everybody else. But, yeah, I mean, Snake Eyes is so easy to draw. It's an anatomy lesson, basically, because he's just like a blank body, and then with that mask that no matter what position you put it in, it looks cool.
Yeah.
That's one visor. Yeah, I mean, that character, when I get a request at a convention, and I occasionally still do get G.I. Joe fans, when someone asks me to draw Snake Eyes, I'm like, oh, thank God, it's so easy. It's such an easy, simple, and it's the design on that is, one of those great moments in human design history. Like, the Snake Eyes design is perfect.
Yeah.
It's the platonic ideal of a badass, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you get everything wrapped into one, and he has like every weapon, and he's good
Uzi.
at like, yeah. He's like, oh, my Uzi's out of ammo, I'll use my pistol. My pistol's out of ammo, now I have swords. Now I have ninja stars. I have everything, or I'll break you with my hands. Like, you can't stop Snake Eyes.
He got a crossbow on his wrist. I mean, he's cool as hell.
Cooler than Boba Fett. Yeah, I said it. Boba Fett gets taken out by a blind guy, not even trying. Now, since Revival, and I think would it be out of line as the writer? Would it be out of line to refer as the revived as or revivers more accurately as zombies?
I mean, if it helps sell books, sure. Yeah.
What's some of your
the
favorite?
Perfect answer.
Yeah, I'm a big Romero guy, or at least early Romero. Land of the Dead was okay, and then everything after kind of sucked. But
Diary.
get that out of there. But what are some of your big? Are you a big zombie guy? What are some of your favorite zombie pieces of fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely, when I was in my teens and 20s, like I just consumed the Romero stuff. I think the original Dawn of the Dead is probably the best zombie movie ever made.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I've seen since then, but I think I've kind of burned out on zombies too. Shaun of the Dead, I think, is holding up and going to add itself to the classic canon of zombie movies because it's about something different than Romero's movies. I don't know, but yeah, there's they've all kind of blended together for me now. To a degree, Walking Dead kind of, because it's so
ubiquitous.
Yeah, and it's also sort of, it does what those movies did, the TV show and the comic, for so long, and so it sort of makes some of that other stuff almost feel repetitive and irrelevant now. I love the comic. I'm not a huge fan of the TV show, but I do think it's sort of replaced in people's minds, zombie stories as being the sort of the uber zombie story. I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll catch a gem. I don't know, like that. There's a pretty decent, but not amazing, pretty decent zombie movie that came out with those 8 films to die for called Re-Kill, which was pretty clever. It sort of takes place after the zombie apocalypse. And also Fido, if you've ever seen Fido, is another really good
It's pretty clever, pretty funny.
Yeah.
One of these days, someone's favorite zombie movie is going to be Thriller.
Yeah.
I think that was my first, like, either that or the original Night of the Living Dead was
Yeah,
my
no.
first exposure to zombies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was Thriller.
Yeah.
I always love the original Return of the Living Dead, and even the sequel too. But I have a big affection for that movie. It's so ridiculous and so weird.
Yeah.
Send more cops.
It was the first instance of a zombie, eating brains.
Or
They're
demanding.
yeah, specifically brains that comes from Return of the Living Dead.
And it's for some reason that really stuck
Yeah,
in people's heads. There you go. There's a pound for you. But it definitely it's not the sort of social commentary is lost and all that stuff, which kind of is a bummer. But who cares? Because the movie's so fun and just has that weird, completely unnecessary Linnea Quigley naked dancing.
Yep.
Everything about it is so odd and fun and stupid. So
Are you going to pull a Return of the Living Dead and revival? Or are they going to nuke? Are they going to nuke Wisconsin?
That's one of the things that we kind of walked like. That's really what would probably happen. They would probably just carpet bomb that thing to glass. So that's something we had to kind of deal with. That's why there's a quarantine, because otherwise they would blow them up because they don't know what to do with it. And if it wasn't for the fact that Maytao got that on the news and got that out into the world and got on the internet, that the military couldn't do something about it is the only reason they're probably still there.
Yeah. Now something we try to ask everybody that comes on the show, what are you currently geeking out over, be it, music or movies or TV or books?
Oh, man. Let's see. I bought the new, and I'm reading it, the new David Wong book, Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote the books John Dies at the End and This Book is Full of Spiders, which I loved. Those are some of my favorite novels.
I read John Dies at the End. I'm currently trying to get through This Book is Full of Spiders. I just swamped with other responsibilities, so I haven't been able to pick it up as much. But yeah, the John Dies at the End was such a good book. Have you seen the movie?
Yeah, I love the movie. The new book is sort of like a superhero thing, kind of.
Yeah, it's outside the John Dies universe, right?
It doesn't have David Wong as the main character, but so that's really I'm enjoying that. Let's see, what else am I checking out? I've been watching pretty religiously the new X-Files, even though I don't love it. At least X-Files is back. That's something kind of. I was a big fan of that show as a kid.
Oh yeah.
The first show was not that. First episode was pretty terrible, but it seems like it's gotten better since.
I remember getting to see the preview of it at New York Comic Con, and I was like, well, at least X-Files is back. Kind of like the same thing that you said. I was like, it's watchable. It's better than the second movie.
Yeah, weird. It just feels like they didn't. I don't know. Yeah, and there's one thing like, since X-Files, so much stuff that kind of came from it. I mean, you got Vince Gilligan coming from that and doing Breaking Bad and sort of being a better show than X-Files was. It's sort of hard to go back, I guess, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, it's. Let's see, what else have I enjoyed of recent? Man, I can't even think of shit. I'm just. I had to write all day. Since DC schedules are kind of crazy lately, so I was working all day today. So I had like one day off in like 3 weeks. So my brain is a little bit juicy. So
Totally. Everyone's gearing up for Rebirth. They're just like, relaunch everything.
You know what's fun is, and I do recommend it, is Eric Larson on Spawn. Like, kind of reminds me of the stuff I liked about the early Image stuff when it was just so, I don't know, like insane and sort of almost seemingly barely considered and ill-planned, but just fun and energetic and hyper detailed. So you get to see Spawn be this sort of crazy superhero thing again, instead of the sort of shadowy noir character that I didn't enjoy as much, surprisingly. But yeah,
like the movie.
Yeah, you could see him just punch demons and stuff.
Well, yeah. Is it kind of a dream then to be? I mean, as someone that that read Image books when they first came out, was it cool to read Image books coming? Write for Image books as a professional.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm of the first generation of people who became professionals whose goal was to be an image creator. I think Kirkman was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of us sort of came out, that's putting out books in the early 2000s. That was when I went into college and stuff. The plan was I'm gonna get really good at drawing and I'm gonna write, and then I'm gonna be able to make my own image book. Like that was the plan, and we're the first group of people influenced by their success when we were kids. So, it's a huge deal for me to sort of have worked there. And I've worked there had a book there for almost 14 years. So on and between Hack Slash and going back to the first stuff I did for Devil's Due, and it was like 8 or 9 years ago I did Loaded Bible there. So yeah, it's crazy, but always a big feather in my cap.
That's cool, man. Well, to kind of sign off, what can we expect? I mean, you mentioned that we're going to kind of be focusing on the side characters, though. We saw the hunt for, I guess, the Cypress Sisters in the peripheral in issue 36. What can we expect, or as a bit of a tease, moving forward in Revival?
Well, I mean, I hope people don't take it as we're focusing on the side characters a bit to be like, oh, the book's going to be quiet and boring, because it's actually completely the opposite. And it gets really crazy. And I think, at the end of this arc, all the threads that we set up in these little one-shots, character stuff really pays off, and it's going to be completely unexpected and really, really it's really horrible, really scary, really. So I'm really proud of it. I hope people aren't sitting on it because they think it's not important, because it is. I promise, and it's also really going to be. I think when this arc ends, it sets up the last 6 issues, and this book has kind of been about escalation, about things sort of, getting more chaotic and more frightening as this reality sets in. So, it's going to be big and nuts. I hope people really like it.
And as a final thing for me, when do we get the Hack Slash TV show?
Oh God, I have no idea. But I mean, that's the thing. Hollywood is awful, but it seems like they make these announcements and you're like, okay, well then you must have a plan, and then they don't have a plan.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I thought that this would be further along, but I haven't heard much lately. But if they're gonna, I mean, I feel like the TV show has a much better chance of existing than the movie did there for quite a while. So
honestly, I think I would prefer a TV show anyway, just because of how deep or thick the universe runs. You have so much more time to work with a TV show. I mean, look at Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead and stuff like that.
Take it to stars like Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
There you go.
Like,
Precedence is set.
That just eats our lunch, I think, is having an Ash show. But I mean,
but then you get the Ash Hack Slash crossover that what was it, Dynamite did?
Yeah.
I
would love to do that. That'd be awesome.
Maybe that can be your launch.
Yeah. That's your backdoor pilot.
Exactly.
And that'd be amazing. I think TV has kind of become the place where stories go now.
Mm-hmm.
I think film is certainly slacking a little bit in that. So I mean, TV. We're living in a golden age and it's both a golden age and the Wild West, where it's like the rules are sort of out the window and network isn't really working. And so I think it could be cool. I mean, I hope so, man. So that 10 years of dealing with Hack Slash movie stuff was awful.
Yeah.
Just it was the worst part of my job, no doubt about it. So,
wow, worse than dealing with editorial. Dear God.
Goes towards something, at least you're trying to make something, and the movie stuff started off so strongly and just ended up so off.
And with editorial, you still had a final product.
Yeah, and with like Hack Slash, it's like, how do we make this sexy? How do we market this to like everybody?
Yeah, but I don't know. But at least you can learn from doing stuff with editorial notes. But there's nothing to be learned by how stupid politics of Hollywood is. It's just there's nothing we learned except that It is stupid.
The only way to win is to not play.
It's exactly. You should tattoo that on your forehead and move to LA. That's
Done.
Well, thanks for coming on, Tim. Hopefully we can get you guys on again. And, of course, again, Revival number 37 is in stores on February 24th. You can get the deluxe hardcover, Volume 3, available now. The Volume 6 trade paperback, or the most recent issue, issue 36, which came out last week. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you.
But yeah, so good book, good chill, good hang. Yeah, with those gentlemen. Yeah. You guys do anything interesting this week?
You
saw a film.
I did. As I recall, it was it wasn't a horror film, so I can't quote that. Anyway, I saw Daddy's Home, the cinematic juggernaut that was Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. It was a little disappointing. It wasn't as funny as I had hoped it would be. Also, I went to Centerville Multiplex, and recently I've been spoiled by going to Alamo Drafthouse, and so like the just plethora of little children that were just running amok in the theater, and the talking, like just ridiculous amounts of talking throughout the entire movie, like just almost ruined the theater going experience. I'm so glad that I went on $5 ticket day, because I was like, if I had spent full price for this, I would have walked out and demanded my money back.
Now, let me understand this correctly. There were children
Yeah.
in the auditorium to
Yes.
see that film.
Yes, so much so. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, this one family of bad parents brought their children to an adult movie, but like it was so much, so full of children that until the credits started and Will Ferrell's voiceover happened, I was like, am I in the wrong movie? Did I accidentally step into Norm of the North? And am going to be even more disappointed?
No, Chris, you were just surrounded by an extreme amount of bad parents.
Yeah, right? That was not a children's movie. Like, it wasn't like a hard R, to say the least, but it was definitely not. It was like teens and above, I would say. You know?
It's for like the, I guess, the other guys crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen children's reactions to that.
I want to see children's reactions to The Revenant.
Mommy, what's that big teddy bear doing?
So my theater does like baby friendly showings one day a week, and we got The Revenant, and when we got it, I actually got a call from somebody who was on the website, was like, I don't see The Revenant marked as a baby day showing on this day. Is it going to be a baby day showing? Like, can I take my baby to it? And I really wanted to be like, you do know what happens in this movie, don't you?
Like, the majority of the characters die brutally on screen.
Granted, your toddler is probably going to fall asleep, and we don't crank the volume, you know, we keep it low, so maybe they won't wake up for it. But still, like, that I wouldn't bring a toddler to that.
I mean, yeah, unless you found a way to, you know, give your toddler an over-the-counter sleeping pill that's definitely going to knock it out. Don't bring it.
It's called a thumb of whiskey.
Or baby, do they have baby NyQuil, or does that not exist?
I don't think it exists.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Procter and Gamble.
Hey, science.
Make that shit happen. They got baby Diamond Tap. Come on.
I loved that shit. I
I
feel like that explains so much about
I
me.
probably drank too much baby Diamond Tap, just Diamond Tap in general, because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is like grape juice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. My chemical imbalances.
I will say that actually probably does explain a lot of things for me, and you too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I will say, spoilers for anyone that cares. You shouldn't. But John Cena is in Daddy's Home. He's literally
everywhere.
Yeah, right. He is killing it on Hollywood right now. But he's literally in the final scene. He plays the foil to Mark Wahlberg post third act, changed man shit. But he is, unfortunately, but also thankfully, the best part of Daddy's Home, because he like just rolls up on his bike, and Mark Wahlberg spends the entire movie being like the badass, biological father to Will Ferrell's adopted kids, just being like, no, fuck you, I'm the kids' parents, I'm gonna be the cool dad, I'm gonna be the fun guy, I'm gonna win over my kids. And then like finally at the end he's like, you know what, no, I want to have a family of my own. So he like adopts or he marries another woman who has a child and adopts her, and then biological dad rolls up, and it's John Cena on a motorbike looking badass, basically like kind of like in a his character from Sisters but without the tattoos. I know, right? I would have loved to have been the same character,
crossover,
shared universe,
right? But he just like rolls up, and he just basically just like shoulder checks Wahlberg and like pretends that he's just like nothing, like fucking Lucas saying that he's going to crush him like a bug.
Well, it's funny because he talks about Mark Wahlberg in whatchamacallit?
Yeah, in Trainwreck. Yeah, so totally shared universe.
All
in my
three of those movies.
Headcanon. But like, yeah, it was perfect. I would have loved for John Cena to have been in more of it, but I think it's high time that John Cena gets like a leading role, not just the lead's ex-boyfriend, or
You can do better than 16 rounds, Hollywood.
yeah, or 12 rounds.
Is it only 12?
Yeah,
I was thinking.
yeah. He was in the first 12 rounds. I decided to watch the third 12 rounds because they just came out with a third one, because it has my favorite superstar in the lead role for the third one. But the first one was John Cena. The second one was Randy Orton.
Oh,
Joe.
and then the third one is my boy Dean Ambrose.
Ah,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm about 10 minutes into it.
The Miz is in like the Marine 7
Yeah.
or whatever they're on.
He's been in like 3 of those.
Has he really?
Yeah, it was John Cena, and then like probably Randy Orton.
I enjoyed John
and then,
Cena's The Marine. It's so ridiculous,
It's got Robert Patrick.
but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, like the Miz is. I think he's been in like 2 or 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
He was just in Santa's Helper, oddly enough, Christmas themed movie, where he is basically trying to become like lead elf. I watched it. It was on USA.
Anybody see that Triple H movie where he's like basically is it the pacifier too,
No,
or just the pacifier?
It's
it's a knockoff of
it's not a direct
of the Vin Diesel movie.
Yeah,
with Lauren Graham.
I know it's on Netflix. I've been tempted to watch it several times, but I have.
Let me be your voice of reason.
Yeah, the only Triple H movie I've seen is Blade Trinity, and it was amazing.
It's all right.
It's the best Deadpool movie so far. So far.
So far, yes.
So far.
Josh, you watch anything?
I got the series premiere of Lucifer.
What did you think of Mr. Ellis as Mr. Morningstar?
Knowing nothing of the character it's based off of, both Neil
Satan?
Gaiman's introduction of the character in the Sandman universe and then his Vertigo Comics run, I like it.
Okay.
I've been hearing a lot of flack from people that know the character or enjoy the character saying it's a bastardization, it's horrible, it's awful, how dare Fox do that? And I'm in that wonderful little bliss ignorance area of I'm a fan enjoying a comic book property brought to television.
Yeah, just go for it, man.
Real quick, the Triple H movie we were referring to earlier is called The Chaperone.
Okay.
It's still available on Netflix.
It's still available on Netflix. Netflix, according to their algorithm, assumes that I will give it 2 stars. So watch out next week. I might tell you if Netflix was right.
Okay.
And I also caught the second episode of the X-Files revival series, which actually isn't the second episode. Fox is pulling a Firefly where they're deciding to run the episodes out of order intentionally.
Oh, I'm glad that I haven't watched it yet.
And so...
Do they reference stuff that happened in something we haven't seen?
Well, if it wasn't told to people that it was being run out of order, apparently they thought that some fans might think this seems a little out of place considering where the first episode was. So we just want to let everyone know, yes, we are running them out of order so they don't feel too jarring.
They've had huge viewing numbers, even
Yeah.
with the football game interruption. So,
But their explanation for why this isn't actually the second episode yet airs as a second episode doesn't make any sense because I would have not known until they said anything. And they said something because fans might notice. So... It'll be interesting to see once it actually does come out on like physical home media to play it in order, how it plays out.
Yeah.
Curiouser and curiouser. Did they because they aired the original series generally out of order, not in production order.
Right. Well, the nice thing about the original series is that there wasn't heavy continuity. There wasn't like strict continuity, so you could more or less put them in any order you wanted, as long as like the premiere is at the beginning and the finale is at the end of the season.
Two-parters are like right there.
Right.
But like this one, it's supposed to be a one contiguous story. And it's only what, 6 episodes?
Yes.
8 episodes? 6
6.
episodes? Yeah. So I feel like to run those out of order would be a bad idea.
Yeah, it's
Disturbing.
It's very weird because the very first one follows very much of like we're just going to automatically again debunk everything that had ever happened in the X-Files, and then this next episode feels more like, yeah, everything now you're encountering kind of reaffirms everything you were doing in the X-Files. So we've kind of gotten a yin and yang episodes right out of the gate.
Yeah, the first episode you got to break down the hero. And then
Crisis
start to build him back up. That's what makes good storytelling.
That's the problem with the second episode. It like builds him right back up to where he was originally.
That's what you get with the in between episodes that we've skipped.
Like I'm feeling the next episode's, if it's not a monster one, I'm going to be surprised.
Next episode will be episode 5, the penultimate episode.
Plus, we want to see Fox Mulder be in his element. We don't want to see broken down Mulder. We already saw. We
saw him with a shitty beard in the second movie.
Yeah, we saw him limited participation Mulder in seasons like 8 and 9. So
yeah, I really, really like his participation in this second episode.
But no, I think if I remember from the panel correctly, like what should be the next like 2 episodes are Monster of the Week episodes. Essentially, like the because it's a miniseries event, they can't do like just straight up 100% Monster of the Week episodes, or at least I assume they can't, because it's such a limited run. Because like the Monster of the Week episodes were really there to fill the extra 20 episodes that they had per season.
At least we know one episode is dedicated to that really gruesome one that.
Oh yeah,
turned off a lot of viewers. Yes.
That terrible TV show about doctors.
Wasn't it Home?
Or Home.
It's either House or Home, yeah.
Season 5? 4 or 5? Somewhere around there?
I think 5.
It's basically one that makes you lose your lunch.
It's for me, if I remember correctly, that's the scariest episode.
It is. I will say, upon my rewatch that I did in preparation for the new season, and, post-film school douchebag Chris Nolan, I must say I have a lot more respect for it. As a filmmaker, still very cringeworthy. Still not a big fan of watching it more than any times that I've seen it already.
It's the one you're most likely to skip.
I mean, some of the latter seasons are,
yeah.
But yes, it's the one that I'm most likely to skip due to
content.
I don't need to watch this.
Yeah.
Versus this is just bad.
Yeah. For me, I was always like seasons 1 and 2 because all the stuff I remember as a kid. Like the Jersey Devil, of course, Tombs. That's all like
Tombs, the real life creeper.
Yeah,
real life Monster of the Week.
Yeah. And then finally, on my continuous binging of television, the show Arrow has continued to prove it so desperately wants to be a Batman show.
With their own Oracle analog.
Yeah, and even as. Thank you for bringing that up, Sam. The almost of wanting to name Felicity Oracle, but then referencing, sadly, that name was already taken.
Is she paralyzed now?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I haven't been watching this season, so
her official title now is Overwatch on the team.
They should have just called her Watchtower.
Also taken.
Yeah. By a building.
But I did like the whole, I wanted to name, all the rest of the line of like, I wanted to name you Oracle, but that was taken.
Cheeky.
So at this point, if a Gotham character
it was already taken by that character from The Matrix.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But at this point, if a character from the Batman verse doesn't show up on the show at some point, I'm going to be surprised.
Technically,
Ra's
Green Arrow is... Yeah, Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, but if you watch this, it makes it believe like he's never had an introduction with
the Dark Knight.
Well, I mean, it is its own series.
Well, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
I always thought they could have got away with that by saying, "You're not my first billionaire I've dealt with." You know, when they were talking to each other.
Yeah, that would have
I
been
was like,
nice.
"Oh, they're going to drop that because clearly Batman's dealt with this before." But we're led to believe Green Arrow's done it first, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Which is always weird.
Yeah.
You see anything, Jake?
I saw something with you
You did.
called Ip Man 3.
Yes.
And it
Intellectual Property Man 3.
Yes. It was very slow
Starring Mike
paced,
Tyson.
very boring. No, it was awesome. I loved it. I wish I would have seen the first two on the big screen.
Available on Netflix. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I never saw either of those on the big
But
screen.
oh man, it was. Look, I think we've talked about like being fans of Mike Tyson and his kind of turnaround in life, being kind of this inspiring
I
thing.
feel like you have talked about that.
I feel like either way.
No, we've talked about it.
You guys were in the room, and so kind of like the big thing was like Sam texted me, he's like, "Hey, Mike Tyson, Ip Man 3 playing at the Angelica," and I was like, "All right, let's do it." Like, you know, I don't watch that many martial arts films, but I have this like insane respect for like their craft and how seriously they take this.
Yeah, I was just like, well, if there's anyone that's going to want to watch like a Mike Tyson
Yeah.
Ip Man movie.
Mike Tyson, and look, I think the Mike Tyson stuff is funny, and the fight is actually awesome. Like Mike Tyson's, you know, it's great to see. There's a shot of him like working the speed bag, and he's still like terrifying on that thing.
He even lays into a heavy bag at
and
one
lays in a
point.
heavy, yeah, it just fucking kicks ass. But there's the great Ip Man fight with Mike Tyson. But don't go into this movie, and this was not a deal breaker for me at all. But don't go into this movie thinking Mike Tyson's like co-starring.
Unlike all the marketing.
yeah, he's in it for maybe 10 minutes total, maybe, and majority of that's the fight.
They Drew Barrymore'd him.
Yeah. They Darth Vader'd him in A New Hope. But
He's not even like spoilers. He's not even the big bad.
no.
They Steven Seagal'd him in Executive Decision.
That's the best thing that ever happened, though. So
Yeah.
Just fuck Seagal.
yeah, fuck him. But here's the thing: like, as much as I love Mike Tyson and to see him in that movie, it almost would have been better without Mike Tyson. Because like the movie has this, I'm not super familiar with the first two, but a really kind of wonderful, beautiful, and touching narrative throughout it. You know, it's not a movie about fighting. You know, it's more a movie about honor.
Nor is it a movie about historical accuracy.
Yeah, well, that's very true. Yeah. I mean, even I knew that.
Much like what it appears Wonder Woman is going to be.
Yeah. But you know, the fight scenes are fantastic. There's an elevator fight scene that's like the coolest thing I've seen in the big screen.
The thing is, though, versus Wonder Woman, like Ip Man was real. Like
Yeah.
he was actually Bruce Lee's like grandmaster.
Wonder Woman's real.
Yeah.
I've seen the comic books.
But
Seen the pictures.
I've seen the historical documents.
Sam, having seen the first two, is it something where like the fight choreography just gets better and better, or is it kind of like you can't get any better than what they've done in Ip Man?
What I like about the fight choreography in Ip Man 3 versus its predecessors, 2 gets kind of like weird. Like the scene where they're like fighting on the table, and it's
like a little too much wire stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and they don't do that much in Ip Man 3. There's a couple shots where there's a great tracking shot down the stairs where he's beating up like 40 dudes, where he kind of jumps on the like kind of the railing and kind of walks down, and that's more of so he doesn't actually fall and hurt himself. But it's not like, look at how wiry I am, you know. There's very little of that, and it's much more kind of just the brutal speed of these guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all about, like, martial arts is all about the economy of motion and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the cool things about Wing Chun, like, just seeing, like, because it's meant to be, like, close quarters and just, like, the speed and just amount of hits. Like, when he's doing the machine gun punches on people.
Yeah. And Mike Tyson still has that speed.
Like he still bobs and weaves.
Yeah. Like, again, it's like seeing a master working their craft. You know what I mean? Like, it's watching Picasso paint. Seeing Mike Tyson box.
The only difference between Mike Tyson and his character in Ip Man 3, who's named like Frank or something.
Yeah, Frankie. Yeah.
Is that he's in
Named M. Bison.
Yeah. Only in the American release. Or only in the Japanese release. Yeah. Because then they're like, if we're going to release this in America, he's going to sue the shit out of us. Or the original version of Punch-Out. Then before they replaced him with Mr. Dream. The only difference is he's in 1960s Hong Kong and he can speak Chinese.
Yeah, when his back is turned. So it'd be like...
So the ADR isn't obvious.
He'll be like, yo, man, I'm going to fuck your shit up, man. I'm going to kick your ass. And he turns his head and he's like, I say do. And then he turns back and he's like, I'm telling you, I'm going to box you into oblivion. and I hope that wasn't like overtly racist with that clearly non-Chinese I spoke. But like,
it's about
terrible.
as good as his Chinese. So.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they don't. It's almost part of the humor. They don't even try to cover up the fact that it's not Mike Tyson talking.
They should have just done like, Tor, style Tor, the Godzilla movies.
Oh, Toho.
Tor is a independent book publisher that did Push. Anyway, or Jumper. Who knows?
They kind of lump together in my mind.
Yeah, but like they should have done Toho style dubbing.
Yeah, there's some parts when it almost does that. But I mean, overall, I really like. I wasn't going in thinking I wasn't gonna like the movie, but in all honesty, I mean, all truthfully, like I was basically going to see Mike Tyson, like, and I wasn't disappointed. Like, I'm not saying.
Well, I warned you before too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did, because if I would have gone in thinking he was like full on in this movie as a character throughout it, I would have been kind of bummed. But Sam was like, "Hey, like, he's kind of just the middle boss." I'm like, "All right, that's cool." So when it happened, I was totally fine with that.
He's kind of the Doomsday.
Yeah, and
Zack Snyder.
And again, like I'm not saying that him being
according to my wishes.
I'm not saying that like him being in the movie like made it worse. It's funny that I almost wished he wasn't in a way, because there was there's the narrative with his wife dealing with cancer, and just being a good dad and letting that happen.
Big spoilers here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to see Ip Man 3 and want to know any plot details,
and go quick, I guess, because it isn't like seems to be going out of theaters.
It's only one showing this week. Limited engagement. The ending of the film.
Yeah, I had to ask Scam. I had to ask Sam.
Scamp.
Yeah, I had to ask him a Freudian slip. I had to ask Scamuel about. I was like, did the other Ip Man movies end this abrupt? Because basically, there's a final confrontation, as there are. Yeah, where he does,
as they are wont
again,
to do.
Spoiler alert: he does the 1-inch punch, and it's fucking awesome. But it cuts to like this super dramatic music, and he's like, "It's all about having the love of your life by your side." And I was like, "That's nice. It's true. Like that's kind of what this movie's about." And then it fades to black, and I was like, "Is that it?" And then it fades back into a picture. I'm like, "Okay, good." And he looks like he's sitting outside of a hospital room, but he's not. And he just Ip Man's sitting there drinking tea, and it fades in with like a subtitle: "Ip Man's wife died in 1960 of cancer," and he just takes a sip, puts it down, and the movie ends.
Yeah, he isn't like depressed. He's just drinking tea.
And we kind of were like, Sam was making Rocky metaphors as we do with everything, but with Ip Man 2, there's a scene that's very Rocky 4. And I was like, this movie's kind of Rocky 2, dealing with like Ip Man gets the strength to fight because his wife's being sick. The only difference is it'd be like if Rocky 2 ended with Stallone drinking a Pepsi and it said Adrian died of cancer in 1979. And then it has a picture of him and all of his boxing buddies. I mean, that's how Ip Man ends. And I'm not saying like making fun of it, but like it's a very sudden and abrupt ending. Maybe that was the point. I don't know. It had to be the point, I guess, because that's what it was. But for a movie that is so in your face, and like we were kind of talking about, there's an elevator fight that we both agreed is the highlight of the movie, where basically he takes on Mike Tyson, sends this like Thai boxer guy who kind of looks like he's got like the long black hair and tattoos all over, and really tiny elevator.
Kind of looks like Ong Bak.
Yeah, actually know what you're talking about with that. But like they open an elevator door, and it's like it's Ip Man, his wife, and the shadow Thai boxer guy, and the giveaway for him, like Ip Man knows something's up, but the giveaway is he takes his slippers off, and he's like, "We're going down," and he hands the groceries back to his wife, and it was the perfect amount of time in this enclosed space, because the whole fight, and again, I'm still blown away by the fight choreography in this. As he's fighting this guy, he's protecting his wife at the same time, and like they're so about like hits almost hitting, but he's always like grabbing, and like I love it.
It's so claustrophobic.
Yeah, and then they hit a stop because I think they might bump into a button or something, and the door opens and he kicks the shadow boxer guy out, and then Ip Man walks out, and the music's like super intense, and I was like getting like fucking emotional and into the and he slowly closes the gate, and then he closes the door where he's looking at his wife, and his wife isn't really worried because she knows he's Ip Man, but there's just like that little moment of like my husband has to go kick the shit out of this guy, and he almost has a smirk on his face like, "I'll see you on the first floor," and then there's some great over the like eagle eye kind of like over the top long takes, and then just beating each other senseless. Mostly Ip Man beating him senseless, like breaking bones, throws the dude down the stairs. There's no way to fake that shit. Like he hits the stairs hard, and he beats him up. And then classic Ip Man, he's just like, go, run away. Right as his wife, the door opens, and they kind of pick up their groceries and go home.
Yeah, the fight takes place the entire descent, in the entire duration, and it takes an elevator reach.
So cool.
Yeah.
I'm very interested now to watch both the first two.
Again, they're on Netflix.
Yeah,
so,
definitely going to check that out.
I saw Brooklyn.
Nah.
Yeah. Because I try to watch all the Best Picture nominees, for better or worse. The only one I think I missed in modern times was Captain Phillips, and I was like, that's fine. That'll be okay.
You lived it.
Yeah, that'll be okay. But the Brooklyn's fine. I don't think it's going to win the big. I don't think anybody thinks it's going to win the big prize. Unfortunately, it's a fine film. Saoirse Ronan does a good job. If she won Best Actress, which unfortunately she's up against Brie Larson in Room and Kate Blanchett from Carol, so she probably won't. But at least long odds say she isn't. But no, she does a really good job. Yeah, that's all I got. Ip Man 3 in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I heard Brooklyn was good.
Yeah.
It's a fine film.
It's better than Bridge of Spies, and that got nominated.
Yeah, hopefully try to get Room in.
But is it better than Straight Outta Compton?
No. No, I'll be honest with you. Is it
Yeah.
better than Creed? No. Yeah.
No. I haven't
Is it
seen it,
better
so I
than
can't
The Danish
say.
Girl?
I didn't actually see. The Danish Girl didn't get nominated for Best Picture.
Well, then clearly it's not.
But dude, it's Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, Brooklyn. I mean, as long like I said, we're planning on by the time this post to see Room.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
If you want to see
$5 Wednesday.
Yeah. Maybe we can get an afternoon show before I have to go to work.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Brooklyn, and I mean, my mom really wanted to see it too, but that's the
You
plan.
got something to add, Mr.
No, I was just about to ask what Room is about.
Room
Tommy
is
Wiseau.
yeah. It's about this young woman who's imprisoned for 5 years, and through her rape while imprisonment, she conceives a child played by Jacob Tremblay, and basically it's how they kind of survive that ordeal and eventually escape.
Oh, that sounds like a pleasant movie.
It's not. It's the one that honestly because the Revenant was fucking brutal, and just maybe not the best. But it's the one like subject matter wise, and of course gets heavy subject matter with Spotlight. You get heavy subject matter with not really with anything else. Now that I think about it, I was like Mad Max. No.
At least not in this timeline.
Yeah. Brooklyn. No. That was pretty. Martian. No, that was best comedy.
Yeah, still confused the fuck about that.
I told you
one.
how over the snowstorm,
I laughed.
my mom walked in as Matt Damon was performing surgery on himself, and she's like, "This isn't funny at all," and like walked away.
She didn't see the scene where he runs out of ketchup.
Yeah.
That bums me out.
Comedic gold.
The room is probably the one with subject matter I'm the most kind of like squeamish about, and understandably so. But Cider House Rules, man. I gotta.
Never saw
Tiger
that.
sanction.
Yeah.
Cider House Rules is great.
Yeah, it's what Michael Caine got his Academy Award for.
That's right.
Yeah,
So-
but it didn't buy him that nice house.
No.
That was Jaws 4.
Yeah.
The Revenge.
First DVD I ever owned.
Yeah.
Yep.
First DVD I ever owned was The Matrix. Yeah.
I feel like that's most people, because that was like the big one.
Jurassic Park. / Jaws.
Do you remember Josh?
Like one my parents bought, or one I actually went out and bought myself.
In your possession. Yeah,
The first the Jurassic Park my father bought, but he bought it for me. He was like, my dad bought a DVD player for Christmas, and he went shopping with me. He was like, pick out one movie for every person, because that's going to be their present, and then the DVD player is the family's present.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I said Jurassic Park.
Fuck all if I could remember that.
Okay,
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
it's a damn good movie.
Do you remember what you bought personally?
Nope.
Okay, so that's out too.
There you go.
Yeah, no, it's fuck all for both.
Yeah. Not even Ghostbusters.
I mean, that would have been one eventually, but shit. I honestly, film is just film. It's something I enjoy.
Yeah.
I can't remember the very first Christmas present I ever received or anything like that.
Well,
The first one I remember getting was the NES, gaming system. In like probably 92, 90. It wasn't right when they first came out.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
For me, the first present I remember getting. Ooh, that's tough. Because my memories of film are so, like, I can tell you the first VHS I ever owned was E.T., and the first movie I saw in theaters was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That's my first conscious memory, because I come online when that stupid fucking rabbit's screaming in the kitchen. Anyway,
his
Don't
eyes
we
turn
all?
red.
yeah, that's when my brain's like, you're going to start remembering things now. It might have very well been. It certainly wasn't a video game console, because I started with the Super Nintendo, and that was not until like 91. Though I didn't get it until like 92.
I feel like it's the case with most people. Nintendo consoles, they didn't get them right around the year they came out.
Yeah, like I got my N64 2 years after it came out, and my GameCube had been out. GameCube had been out for 2 years by the time I got it.
Yeah, I think the PS2 was the first gaming system that I got within the first year of its release.
The only consoles I've gotten within the first year of the release was the Xbox 360, which is unfortunate because I should have got a model that didn't have like the red ring syndrome.
no.
I should have waited a couple years.
I never got the red ring. I've technically owned 3 360s, and none of them have ever red ringed.
I'm on my third 360 because the first two did red ring.
Mine. I bought the first one, and then I was like, oh, I never play this. So like, sold it back to GameStop or whatever. And then Josh was upgrading to a different, something like that, and like gifted me, or maybe like only charged me like $100 for the system and then a couple accessories. So that was a great deal. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll like watch Netflix on it, because I didn't have a DVD player that could, or a Blu-ray player that could get online and to do Netflix. And then I sold that because I was like, I don't use it anymore. And then, Josh, did you gift me? Oh, no. My sister, my first Xbox, I had sold it to my sister, not to GameStop. I had sold it to my little sister, and she was like, "Oh, I bought an Xbox One. You can have the 360 back." So
technically the same.
Technically, I guess I've only owned 2, but that first generation Xbox that I bought still hasn't red ringed on me.
You're one in like 55%.
Yup.
I've only had one Xbox, and I remember I asked the person, like, how do I stop that from happening? Because I was like, I should have been I was working on Blockbuster, and I didn't have really the money to be buying an Xbox 360, but I was like, I'm going to join the 21st century. And so I asked them, they were just like, don't put it on its side. I was like, okay. And I never put it on its side, and it's the same one I bought years and years and years ago.
Probably smart move.
Because they were like, the fan just blows inward. I will say the first Christmas, I think it's a Christmas present or birthday present, I can't remember. It was a toy Elvis guitar.
I got like a blue like plastic guitar. Now that I think about it, when I was young, I also got like a red harmonica. But I also got the Wii, the original Wii, within the first year of release, because everybody wanted a Wii. The first, unless they're Josh,
or me,
or Chris,
or me,
or okay, just me. All right, fine.
You
fine.
and Zach.
Okay.
Zach.
Yeah. Club Nintendo.
Yeah. Hashtag Team Nintendo, Zach.
I've got nothing against Club Nintendo. NES, Super NES, N64, Game Boy Color,
millions of different types
Game
of
Boy
Game Boys.
Advanced, motion control. Kiss my sweet white ass.
Virtua Boy.
Always wanted one, never had one.
Played it.
They had the demo. They had the demo at Toys R Us, and I played it for like 5 minutes, and I was like, nope. This hurts my eyes.
Probably why I wear contacts now. But, yeah. I did play Battlefront, the new Battlefront, finally. It's like, obviously it's not as good as Battlefront 1 or 2. Obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think
the general consensus.
I don't think it is a bad game. I just don't think it's like...
Does it hold up on its own, nostalgia aside?
It's not the nostalgia. It's just the fact that I'm like fucking shooting stormtroopers and flying an X-wing.
It's the best Battlefront I've ever played.
I was playing.
You haven't played any of the others, have you?
No, I haven't even played it.
Yeah. So your statement's just entirely inaccurate.
Yeah. Well, not inaccurate, just a lie.
Yeah. Misguided. I'm playing like on Solist. I'm doing like Supremacy, which is basically Battlefield, and fucking like. A TIE fighter comes down, and my friend, because he's got the Xbox One, and that's what I was playing it on. His wife was like, "Oh, Jeff always tries to shoot those. He never." And then like I just kind of like nonchalantly like fired my blaster rifle, and it blew up, and I was like, "Oh, all right. And I just kind of kept walking. And, like, I get that I didn't, like, it was, I just happened to have the kill shot. I know it's got like 100 health, but still, it was kind of fucking money. That's how I started my Battlefront, my short-lived Battlefront career. Because I don't think they don't even, it's not even full price anymore. Like, EA slashed the prices within the first month. They're like, oh, nobody's buying this.
Well, it keeps going on
Except
sale, going off sale, going on sale, going off sale. Basically, when EA's ever like, okay, we're still not selling enough copies. Drop its sale price again. Yeah. Okay, we sold enough. Put it back up to full price so we can trick idiots into buying it at full price again.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I don't think it's basically a reskin of like Battlefield 3.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So if you like Battlefield 3, then you like Star Wars, ta-da.
Here's a current gen version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my thing is, like, you've got a fucking kick-ass engine with Battlefront 2. Just release an HD version of that. Because that game was awesome. That game was like fucking the Mad Notes.
It was jacked to the tits?
Just like The Big Short, it was jacked to the tits. But yeah, you guys got anything to add? Are we jacked?
I think we're jacked.
Jacked.
Tits.
There it is. All right. Well, this has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
I'm Josh.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
Damn, that beat was dope.